2020, an interesting year which very few of us saw coming. Even with perfect vision, I'm not sure I would have believed it. But here we are, experiencing the most unusual high holidays in modern history. I hope all of us are comfortable physically, being in our homes or outside or wherever you might be. But spiritually, I know there's a lot of discomfort. There's fear, there's resentment, there's trepidation about the unknown, there's consternation about what to do about it all. And as we are in our sacred space right now, within this holy virtual sanctuary, I am reminded of the concept that Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel spoke of in his book, The Sabbath, a sanctuary in time. The concept that the Sabbath and prayer itself is indeed a sanctuary beyond space and time. I don't think our rabbis could have imagined a minyan spread across an entire city, extending past state lines, or maybe even gathering us together from different continents. The Talmud considers the acceptability of standing outside a prayer space and being counted. They argue a case where a person is peering in from a window and asking if somebody looking in from the outside can constitute a minyan. Look at our windows now. It's amazing and wondrous and frightening and frustrating, all at the same time. And the question is, what do we do? The answer for today, I believe, is primal. Since we are here to celebrate the birthday of the world, let's go back to those first moments of creation, when humanity came into existence with the first breath of life. For right now, that is the answer. Breathe. We need to breathe in and out because we are at a moment of creation. We are celebrating the birthday of the world, and in our classic epic saga, our first moment of creation, the moment that gave rise to all humanity, was brought about by a breath. God's neshama, Hebrew word for breath and spirit, was sent into our bodies, humanoids made of stardust, mud, and earth, a life force, a soul fused with the corporeal. From the first breath, all of humanity unfolded. The breath is powerful. Everything you see around you, all that we have and all that we are began with a breath. Breath is so important in our spiritual tradition that our Bible begins with the neshama as recorded in the story of Genesis. Now fast forward to the end of the Tanakh, the Jewish Bible, in the book of Psalms, the final verse of Psalm 150, Kol hanishama tehallelah, each living breath will praise God. Breath is how existence begins and how it'll end. Everything in between is tied to it. The prophet Ezekiel, in the iconic story of the Valley of the Dried Bones, presents an allegory seemingly about resurrection and return. This theme is apropos for our spiritual work on these high holidays. Ezekiel presents a way in which the people Israel, from their despair and dispersion, will rise again. The answer is remarkable because it comes through the breath. V'natati ruchi bachem v'chayetem. I will put my breath within you, and you will live. Of course, breath is so much more than just respiration. When we are faced with great challenges, difficult confrontation, and meaningful moments, what does everybody say? Take a deep breath. The Radak, Rabbi David Kimchi, the 12th century medieval commentator and philosopher, argues that Ezekiel's ruchi, the breath of God which will resurrect the bones, is actually ruach hasechel, the spirit of wisdom. So we must breathe at this moment not only to calm and collect ourselves, but to gather from the corners of our soul the wisdom we need to thrive in this coming year. We imagine the book of life being opened and inscribed each and every breath a gift. So breathe deeply. But it's hard to breathe. It's hard to inhale, as it's been hard for quite some time now. My Rosh Hashanah message for all of us is simple. Even in the midst of all the challenges, the unknowns, the disappointments, and the terrible loss, breathe. For the last 6 months, we have been masked. Literally, our mouths, our smiles, our greatest tools for expression and connection have been covered over. COVID-19 has caused an intense shift in how we do the most basic of things. We walk through the world at a distance. We can't stand too close to one another. We are figuring out how to give a wider berth when entering and exiting. Shopping, pharmacy, school, takeout, dinner, once easy activities have become an exercise in mindfulness, filled with obstacles and booby traps to avoid. The anxiety rises high as we peer into the storefront to see if the coast is clear. Once upon a time, seeing a crowd brought interest. Today, it is repellent. Of course, most encounters are uneventful. We go in to purchase and we leave. It almost feels funny to have worried. And then the next morning, we wake up with a scratch in our throat, an ache in our neck, and we wonder. We review the day. We think about all the people we encountered, the anonymous ones and the loved ones, and we worry. We splash water on our face and we do it over again, another day. How do we make it through each day just like the last, filled with anxiety, caution, and concern? Breathe. Just breathe. You are doing your best. Be kind to yourself and kind to others. Be kind to those who work all day suffocated by their masks, but doing it to protect themselves and those they will encounter. Be kind to those who aren't doing it your way. You know, the right way. We are all in this together, whether we think so or not. Breathe. But breathing isn't so easy. For some of us, COVID-19 has been more than the boogeyman lurking in the shadows. It's been up close and personal. We've gotten sick. We have felt our lungs closing in. We have been hospitalized. Cruelest of all has been the distance maintained between the sick and their support system. Family, friends, and those who provide the most important emotional and mental support are kept at a distance, stopped at the door and made to wait outside and wonder, to sit and ponder. When will that call come? What will that doctor say, and how are they going to manage? Most sad is the thought of hands not being held, a final kiss not being delivered, a last breath not being witnessed. Breathe. Give breath to yourself, and with it, give yourself a measure of kindness. You did what you could. Those that you love, they know you're holding hands. They know your hug, your kisses. They last longer than just a moment. They are felt beyond space and time. They felt your presence. They received your kiss. But disease isn't the only thing that has taken away our breath. The breakdown of discourse and the illness of relationships has left us breathless. With our lives, thoughts, and opinions now being televised, posted for everyone to see, our relationships are being challenged. Words like unfriend and block are used in reference to relatives, siblings, parents, and children. Now, of course, I totally get it. I'm completely on your side. They are so wrong. They don't even know how wrong they are. And it's all their fault. If they weren't so brainwashed, they might be able to hear the truth. Breathe. Take a breath before you send that email, before you stamp that letter, before you block that user. Breathe not to catch your breath, but to remember that others are filled with the same air, hot or not, the same air that lives within you. Each and every one of us is filled with the divine breath. Each of us is allowed to be wrong. None of us are allowed to be cruel. The Talmud speaks of relationships, a relationship between Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Gamliel was the chief justice of the Sanhedrin, the great rabbinic court that pulled Judaism out of the burning rubble of the destroyed temple in Jerusalem. Rabbi Yeshua, one of the great sages of that time, and a member of Rabbi Gamliel's court. Often they found themselves in disagreement with the chief justice. As Yom Kippur approached, Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua found themselves at odds. They found themselves at odds about the day of Yom Kippur. When will it occur? According to Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Gamliel had made a crucial error, accepting inaccurate testimony about the new moon, which marked the first day of the month, and in this case, the start of the new year, Rosh Hashanah, and the beginning of the upcoming calendar. The count, according to Rabbi Yeshua, was 1 day off. The whole community of Israel would be fasting and seeking expiation a day early, and therefore breaking their fast and returning to their work and occupations on the most sacred day of the calendar year, condemning the people Israel before the eyes of God. Rabbi Yeshua spoke up, which apparently angered Rabban Gamliel. In what seemed to be a display of power or punishment, Rabban Gamliel ordered Rabbi Yeshua to appear in front of the court with his shepherd's staff and his money bag on the very day that Rabbi Yeshua believes is Yom Kippur. Although Rabbi Yeshua still believes his colleague wrong, he appears in court, staff and cash in hand. The story ends with Rabban Gamliel embracing Rabbi Yeshua, celebrating his wisdom and courtesy. But this is not the end of the story. A year goes by and Rabbi Yeshua is once again at odds with Rabban Gamliel, still presiding as Chief Justice of the Sanhedrin. Rabban Gamliel calls out Rabbi Yeshua for disagreement and has him stand in the midst of the court while the others remain seating, continuing the daily discourse. Imagine how you would feel, literally called out and made to stand in front of your friends, colleagues, students, and community. The Talmud explains that it is this, not the earlier case in which Rabban Gamliel was wrong, but this, in the way that he treated Rabbi Yeshua, which was unacceptable. Rabban Gamliel was deposed and replaced as Chief Justice of the Sanhedrin, not for being wrong, but for being cruel. Breathe. It's okay to be wrong, but it's not okay to be cruel. There is no space for insult and insensitivity. Breathe. One of the central refrains of the High Holiday Liturgy is a scriptural reference which we sing repeatedly, especially throughout Yom Kippur. The 13 attributes of God. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum Vechanun, Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed Ve'emet, Notzer Chesed La'alafim, Notzer Avon V'Fesha, Ve'Hakahat Ve'Nakeh. The Lord, a God compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in kindness and faithfulness, extending kindness to the 1,000 generations, forgiven iniquity and transgression and sin. Slow to anger, that is an attribute to emulate, but easier said than done. No wonder we cast that emotion, that control up into the cosmos, far away from us. But within that attribute, which we recount repeatedly on these holy days, that we strive to emulate of the divine, we might find the answer. The phrase slow to anger, erech apayim, neither word means slow nor anger. Instead, it translates to length of nose. Breathe. Even God knows when it's appropriate to take a deep breath. Search for wisdom and bring forth kindness. Breathe. It's much more than just respiration. It's redemption. Shana Tova Umetuka. May this year be filled with sweetness, kindness, and breath.